Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma DAF Nun Zayin. We are holding on Nun Vav Amid Beis, 7 lines off the bottom of the Amid, right at the 2 dots. Itmar we have learned. So before we begin, we all know that there are different levels of guarding, of watching, different standards which apply to different people. Basically, if you're just a shemer chinam, you're watching something for free, as a gesture of goodwill, as a chesed. So your requirements, your obligations are relatively less than if it were somebody who's getting paid to watch this item, who's called a shemer sachar, right? He's getting a fee for his service. A shemer sachar has to guard against even geneva, thievery, va'aveda, or from the item getting lost. He's responsible for that as well. So if it gets lost or stolen, he's responsible. Whereas a shemer chinam merely has to guard against carelessness and negligence. Pshia. He cannot be pesheya. But more than that, he's not responsible. If it gets lost or stolen, he's pater. So the levels of shmira vary according to your commitment. Shemer chinam has less of a commitment. So by him, just a shmira pechus, a relatively minor, lower standard of guarding is sufficient, whereas by a shemer sachar, a higher level is required. He must guard even against gneva v'aveda. Now what about if a person is a shemer aveda? So he found an item in the street and he's holding on to it until he finds the owner. So he's being mekayim a mitzvah min ha-Torah, right? But what level of shmira is he required to do? Is he treated like a shemer chinam? Because after all, he's not really getting paid, at least not in this world. Or is he considered like a shemer sachar, who has to guard even against geneva v'aveda? We have machlokes amoraim, itmar, shemer aveda. How do we treat him? Rabba Amar ki shemer chinam. He's merely a shemer chinam. He's not getting paid for his service. So if it gets lost or stolen, he's pater. Rabbi Yehuda Amar ki shemer sachar. No, he has the shemer sachar standards. Ki shemer sachar dummy. So Rabbi says ki shemer chinam dummy. Rabbi Yehuda ki shemer sachar dummy. And the Gemara explains. Rabba Amar ki shemer chinam dummy. Why does Rabbi equate him to the shemer chinam? Because my hano kamatileu. What fee, what hana, what benefit is he getting from this? So he's a standard shemer chinam. Rabbi Yehuda Amar ki shemer sachar dummy. No, he's a shemer sachar because he's getting some fringe benefit. Although he's not getting, directly paid by the owner, but he's getting something. What is he getting? No, because of that benefit. Because since when he's involved in caring for the aveda, he's doing a mitzvah. He's called oisek b'mitzvah, and we know that when a person is involved with a mitzvah, he is at that moment pater from all other mitzvahs. So imagine this fellow was guarding the aveda, and suddenly a poor man knocks on the door looking for tzedakah. So he sort of saves, so to speak, saves on that tzedakah. He need not give bread la'anya to a poor man. So that savings, because of the fact that he's watching the aveda, that gives him a savings. So that gain is considered the schar, which makes him a shemer sachar. Some explain it a bit differently. According to Rabbi Yosef, why is he shemer sachar? Not necessarily because of that bread, but since the Torah imposed this obligation upon him. You have to watch the aveda, you have to care for it. So it's probable that the Torah gave him, a higher level of shmira, hilkach shemer sachar dami, a higher standard is required, and he has to guard even against geneva v'aveda. The Ibn Shul learns a bit differently. He says the point is that he's getting a mitzvah. So since he's been mekayim a mitzvah, he's all excited, he's into it, and he's willing to commit himself to even a higher standard. Now, interestingly, there's machlokes rishonim. You see, the Gemara seems to say that whenever a person has an aveda in his home, he's pater from giving tzedakah, which Tosfos learns is improbable because He says, just because you're doing a mitzvah doesn't mean you can't do any other mitzvah. A person's wearing tzitzis, so that means he doesn't have to do tzedakah. Or if you have a mezuzah on your doorpost, that means it parted from all mitzvahs. So Taisus learns that we're speaking at a time when he's actually physically, actively involved in caring for the Aveda, airing it out, shaking it up, right? All the things you have to do to care for the Aveda and to preserve it. So when he's actually being Isaac in the mitzvah, then he's parted from other mitzvahs, and that's what the Gemara is speaking about. And but there are other Rishonim that learn that it all depends whether you can consider him to be the Isaac in the mitzvah, meaning if you're actively doing a mitzvah, even if you can actually do something else at the same time. But if you're doing a mass of mitzvah, you don't have to look for another mitzvah at the same time. Okay, so Taisus learns it's only a Torah when you cannot feasibly do both together, whereas other Rishonim learn even if you can't theoretically do both together, but since you're doing an active maaseh mitzvah as opposed to a passive maaseh mitzvah like just having tzitzah sit on your mezuzah on your doorpost, but if you're actually doing something with your hands, you're doing a maaseh mitzvah, then you're not mechuyev to do anything else. And that's what the Gemara means. Shemer Aveda is pater from tzedakah. Okay, so bottom line, how do we categorize a Shemer Aveda? Rabbi says Shemer Chinam, he's not getting paid. Rabbi says Shemer Sachar because of this savings, or because the Torah gave him a higher standard. Now from here until basically the end of the sugya, the end of the DAF, we're going to have kashas, and we're going to try to prove which way it is, one way or the other. Is it Shemer Aveda, Shemer Chinam, or Shemer Sachar? Says the Gemara, Eis Vei Rav Yosef l'Rabba. So Rav Yosef, he's the one that says Shemer Sachar. He asked Rabba, we have a brayso regarding a person returning a lost item. So let's say he didn't really notify, he discovered the owner, he didn't notify him, he just put it back into his house, a place where he will notice it. He no longer has to tend to it, because rest assured the owner will notice it and take it. Now let's say the item gets lost or stolen. So the fellow who found the Aveda is responsible. Now what does this mean? My nignava ayavda. So where was it stolen or lost from? Right? Lav nignava in beisai. Apparently we're speaking that it got lost or stolen from the home of the fellow who found it, right? And what do we see? That he's responsible for Gneva Vaveda. Now, if he was a Shemer Chinam, he wouldn't be responsible. Apparently he's a Shemer Sachar. It's right to Rav Yosef. Lo, says the Gemara. It wasn't stolen from his home. It was stolen at the location where he returned the item. So, of course, if it would still be in his home, he wouldn't be chayiv for Gnei Bavavei. This is Shemer Chinam. What happened was he returned it without informing the owner. Then it got lost or stolen, he's responsible. Well, 1 second, you just told me he's not. The brayso began by saying, but once he returns it to a place where we assume the owner will notice it, he no longer has to tend to it. And here you're saying he has to compensate him if it gets lost or stolen? How does that work? Amar Leisi, he said like this, my skin was speaking but it depends what time of the day he put it, in that place. In the morning or the afternoon. The brayso is in effect telling you, giving you two different time frames with two different halachos. The brayso is saying like this. So a fellow found an item, went back to the owner's, home, and plopped it and put it in there without informing him. So it depends when it was, whether the owner will notice it or not. During morning hours, he's coming in and out to davening, he's there, he'll notice it. But once it hits later on, lunchtime, afternoon, he's at work, he's not going to notice it. So you have no right just putting it there without informing him. So the Brisa says like this: so if it's morning time and he put it there, assuming the owner will notice it, it's common for him to go in and out at that time. And notice the aveda, and so the finder no longer has to tend to it. Rest assured, the owner will notice it and take charge. But if later on in the day, and he puts it in that same place where the owner may not notice until comes home at night. It's not common for him to go in and out at that point. He won't notice it, won't necessarily notice it. At that point, if it gets lost or stolen, he's fully responsible. So again, the kasha from Rabbi Yosef was, the Brisa speaks about a finder putting the item in a place where he assumes the owner will find it. That's it, done deal. If it gets lost or stolen, he has to pay. What do you mean? Lost or stolen from where? From when? Oh, from the finder's home. Apparently he's a shemer sacha. No, it got lost or stolen at the location where he returned it. What do you mean? I thought you can do that. Well, it depends when. Morning time, the shchiach, the ayal v'nafik, where he goes in and out. We assume he notices it, and you're pater. But later on, you're not. Eisvei comes another kasha. The Rav Yosef, who says shemer sachar, asks Rabbah, who maintains shemer chinam. Lo elam muchayev. Again, this is a hashavas aveda fellow. He's always responsible. He has to care for it until he brings the aveda back to the rishus, to the jurisdiction of its owner. What does lo elam mean? He's always chayev. What's that going to include? My lo elam, lava filu mebeisei. We're assuming it's alluding to something happening, a mishap occurring to the item while in the home of the finder. That proves shmamino kishemer sachadami, the shemer sachar. He's fully responsible. Amalis, the Rabbah responds, you know what? You're right. In this case, you're right. Because we're speaking about an animal that he found. I agree fully when it comes to animals. They have to be cared for more carefully. Why? Since we see naktilu, that they have adopted a new track. You see they're roaming around. Apparently they figured out how to escape from their owners, and they're sort of exhibiting an independent streak. So they have to be guarded extra well. So when it comes to just an object, a passive item, Rabbah maintains a shemer aveda is merely a shemer chinam, lost or stolen, and pot. But when it comes to an animal, you got to really care for it and make sure it's cared for properly and guarded properly, otherwise it's going to disappear. Now Rabbah, who says shemer chinam, asked Rabbi Yosef from a brisa which focuses on the pasuk by Hashavas Aveda, which says Hashev teshivim lachicha. Right, return the item to your brother. If it would only say Hashev, I would say Ein li el b'veisei, l'ginasei ein el b'veisei. So perhaps you only fulfill Hashavas Aveda if you return the item directly to the person's home. What about l'ginasei? Uluchravasei minayin, return it to his garden, to his abandoned lot, his broken down home. Basically, it's his property, but he doesn't really live there actually. Minayin, is that considered Hashavas Aveda? Tamalemi, yeah, teshivim. We call Malkim. The extra expression teshivim includes this as well. Now, my leginasai uluchravasei. When we say gina and churva, what exactly are they? Ilaim leginasai mishtameres, uluchravasei mishtameres. We're speaking about these properties that are properly guarded. Hanu beisei, then they're like his home. Why do we need a special pasuk for that? Elopshita must be leginasei she'enim mishtameres, uluchravasei she'enim mishtameres. Must be that these properties are not properly guarded, and we see that you can actually return the item to those locations. Shmamina, that proves kishem dami, the finder is merely shemachinam, who's only required to apply minimal shmira. Amalei Rav Yosef responds, no, lo'ilam, certainly liginasai means hamishtameres, a guarded area. Uluchravasei means hamishtameres. Udukakashilach, regarding your question, hainu beisei, aren't these exactly a duplicate of his home? All the chiddush is hakamashma. The point is the lo'ibe'inan das balim. You see, here the chiddush is, in contrast to his home, where once it's there, he'll notice it. Here, he won't necessarily notice it for a while. And the point of the price is that you don't have to ensure that the owner notices that you returned it. He'll find out later. It's okay. Rabbi Lezer, just as Rabbi Lezer tells us, anybody else has to inform the owner. So if you steal, if you rob, you can't just plop it back without. He has to know about it. Chutz ma Shavas Haveda. Shavas Haveda does not require consent or notification of the owner. Sharei ribsa b'Torah Shavas Harbe, because of this pasuk Hashet Shivim, which includes all these types of methods of returning. Only a Bailo Ravis. You say Shemer Sachar ba'atlo tispra. Would you not hold the Shemer Aveda that a person guarding a lost item Shemer Chinam Dam is merely a Shemer Chinam? How could you maintain that is not a Shemer Chinam? V'amar b'chir ba'abba. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. We have a halacha like this. Hatoyin tanas ganav b'aveda. Suppose a person found a lost item. And then when he was confronted by the owner, he says, "Oh, it was stolen from me," which of course never happened. He's toyin tanas ganim. He's claiming that it was stolen. And then it turns out, it's been discovered that he actually pocketed the item. He's the ganav. What happens? Not only does he have to return the actual item, that's simple. That's obvious. But Mishalam Tashlumei Kefil, he has to pay double because he became the ganav. Even though technically he was holding on to it rightfully, because technically he just found it, right? He didn't actually steal it. So it came into his hands rightfully, but once he denied its existence and claimed that it was stolen, he's now labeled as a ganav with all its consequences. He has to pay double. Now, that's only because the ganav claim that he presented he was using that claim, he was seeking to use that claim to absolve himself, to pater himself. So this is sort of his penalty. He tried to sell a story as though it was stolen and exempt yourself. You have to be the ganav with all its consequences. You pay the kefil. But that only works if in fact this ganav claim, right, this claim that it was stolen, would theoretically make him potter. And that only applies to a shemer chinam who's potter when something is stolen from him. But if you claim, you Rav Yosef maintain that a shemer aveda is regarded as a shemer sachar. So in any case, even when he claimed that it was stolen, he was still responsible. That's not called toyin tanas ganav, who exempted himself through this claim. If you're going to tell me shemer sachar havi, that every shemer aveda is a shemer sachar who's chayiv to pay when something is stolen from his possession. Amai mishal tashlumi kefil. So why in this case is he paying double when he pretended it was stolen? He wasn't gaining anything by claiming that claim. He would have paid anyways. Karna by Yishlumi has to pay the actual principal as soon as he presents that story. So there's no point of applying. You can't apply the halach of toyin tanas ganav, which only applies when you pretend to exempt yourself. Amalei Rabbi Yosef responds, Hachmai Skin was speaking against Shetoyin Tanas Lista Mazui. This fellow, instead of just claiming that a regular robber, this was an armed robber. Armed robber is an oinus. It's an accident beyond his control, totally beyond his control. So this type of ganav, which is sort of like, on the borderline between a ganav and an oinus, this claim that he was robbed at gunpoint is sufficient to exempt him, right? But it's not just a plain oinus, not just an accident out of the blue. It was an oinus involving a robber. So here we say that we compare to the halacha of toyin tanas ganav. If it turns out that he himself took it for himself, he pocketed, he's the ganav, he has to pay double. Amar Lei, so Abai responds, what do you mean? Why would you pay double? Listim mezuyan gazlanu. Armed robber is called a gazlan. It's not a ganav. A ganav, steals quietly at night. He robs you at gunpoint. He's a totally different designation. He's labeled as a gazlan. And as Rashi says, it's called an oinus. It's not called a ganav. And the halacha of the shomer aveda, the shomer chinam paying the kefil instead of the ganav, that only applies by a toyin tanas ganav when he claims that it was stolen, not gazlan. It's a totally different story. It's an oinus. Amalei Reisiv says no. I still consider it a type of ganav. Shani Yomer, I maintain, listim azuyin, even an armed robber, is still labeled as a ganav. You see, typically a ganav is a fellow who steals quietly. He's afraid of people. He just, clandestinely goes and swipes it. That's a ganav. A gazlan is somebody who steals, outright, confronts his victim, steals outright. So the kasha was, listim azuyin is a gazlan. And there's no halacha of, toyin tanas ganav in this case. So he answers like this. He's not a gazlan. Even though he's confronting its owner, he's really behaving like a gazlan. But since he hides from people, look, he brings his gun. He's not a overconfident person. He hides. He gets away, he runs away, and he hides. So he's called a ganav. He's closer to a ganav than a gazlan. Right? So a ganav is a person who does things clandestinely. He doesn't have that chutzpah like a gazlan who comes outright and confronts his victim. He's coming with a weapon, because otherwise to sort of boost him. And ultimately he's really afraid of people. And he's always in hiding. So he's closer to a ganav than a gazlan. In which case, if the shomer, in this case the shomer aveda, maintains that he was robbed by the listim azuyin, we treat it as though he's claiming that a ganav took it away. In which case, if it turns out that he's the ganav, right, then he has to pay the kefil. Right? So let's just recap. The kasha was, how could a shomer aveda ever end up paying kefil? Even if he claims that it was stolen, but if a shomer aveda is a shomer sachar, he's chayiv for gneva. So he's paying right away. He's not absolving himself. In which case, the halacha of toyin and tanas ganav, pretending that it was stolen, that will not generate the double payment. That only applies when a person is trying to exempt himself. He's not. He's going to have to pay outright. He's guilty. He's a shomer sachar chayiv. He's responsible for gneva. The answer is, it was a unique type of ganav. It was a listim azuyin. So on the one hand, presenting this type of story exempts you. On the other hand, if it turns out that you stole it, you have to pay kefil, because the tain of listim azuyin is also a sort of ganav type of claim. Interesting discussion. Eisvei, here comes another question. Loi im amris b'shem rachinam. So Rashi says it's a brisa, but Rashi says he's not sure, what it's referring to. It's sort of like starting middle of a discussion. No, if you'd say, you can't compare it to Shem Rechinam, Shekain Mishalem Tashlamei Kefil. Shem Rechinam has an advantage over Shem Esachar, because, as we explained, sometimes a Shem Rechinam can end up paying Kefil himself. I.e., when he presented this Tanas Ganav, as though it was stolen from him, it turns out he's the one who pocketed it, he has to pay Kefil. Suppose Shem Esachar never has that, because he's responsible from the get-go. He can't potter himself with that taina. She'enim Mishal Tashlam Kev, he never pays double. Right? Because once again, if he claims that it was stolen from him, he's responsible. So he's never exempting himself, and there's never a point of taking him to the next level of paying double. But according to you, according to what you just told me, that there is a form of ganav that a shomer sachar can also sort of use as his claim to exempt himself. In which case, if it turns out that he's falsifying, the tables turn on him, and he's the one who has to pay the kefil. So how can you say a shomer sachar never pays kefil? Listim azuyin, this armed robber, is considered a ganav. So it turns out that even a shomer sachar can end up paying kefil. Nimtza b'shomer sachar, mishal tashlamei kefil. How? B'toyin tanas listim azuyin. If he claims that it was robbed through a listim azuyin, Amalei, he responded, you're right, there is some exceptional, unusual case, but typically, shomer sachar does not pay kefil. Because typically when he says stolen, he has to pay outright, right then and there, he's responsible. Amalei, the Brisa means like this. Shemechinim has an advantage. Ultimately, it's a broader gamut of possibilities to bring him to kefil. Anytime a shemechinim claims that it was stolen from him, anytime this ganav gets him to kefil, if it turns out that he's falsifying. As opposed to shemesachar, yeah, you found one case, but typically it doesn't work. Only one case, but toyin, tanas, listamazuin, so there you go. Shemechinim still has an advantage over shemesachar. Here comes another kash. This brisa discusses a shayel, a person who borrows an item, which pretty much makes him fully responsible for the item, no matter what happens. V'nishbar mace, so the animal collapsed, it broke, whatever, it got injured, or mace, or died. The shayel is responsible. So perhaps only under these circumstances. What about gneva v'aveda minayin? What if it's stolen or lost? Is the shayel responsible? Amr, sure. Kal v'chaymer, through a kal v'chaymer. Uma shemer sachar, shepata b'shvura mesa. Look, even a shemer sachar, who's not responsible for these types of accidents, but is still responsible for gneva and aveda, chayiv b'gneva aveda, shayel, a borrower, shechayiv b'shvura mesa, he's responsible for any oines. Eina din, doesn't it lend to reason that he's also chayiv, shechayiv b'gneva aveda? V'zeu kal v'chaymer she'ein lo tshuva. This is a kal v'chaymer that cannot be refuted. End of brisa. Now comes the question. Who, according to you, Rav Yosef, who classified the armed robber as a ganav, amai ein lo tshuva. So, look, why can't I respond to this kal v'chaymer? Let me say it like this. Ikil mifrach. I can easily respond and sort of argue that a shemer sachar actually stands higher than a shayel. You're working with the premise that a shayel is the most responsible. He's the most liable. He's more responsible than a shemer sachar. No! Actually, mal shemer sachar shekem mishal tishlemei kefil. You know, a shemer sachar has something a shayel does not. A shayel can never get to pay double. As soon as something happens, he pays. He pays the principal. He pays the karen. Whereas a shemer sachar sometimes can get to pay double. He'll have double liability. How? B'toyin, tanas, list mazoin. If he only claims this list mazoin tana, oh, it was robbed by an armed robber. Turns out he's falsifying. He stole it himself. He has to pay double. So there's an advantage. Torah shemer sachar over a shayel, according to you, Rav Yosef. Amar leis, Rav Yosef responds, that's not a kasha. Because this brisa holds that ultimately a shayel stands higher. You see, a shayel is always going to pay. No questions asked. What happened? Nishbar, pay. Mace, pay. Stolen, pay. Right? Whereas a shemer sachar, he doesn't pay unless he sort of contrived the whole thing and he falsified and he made a shvua. That turns out that he's not. It's all procedure to get him to pay. Carnival shvua, the actual principle, the outright payment that a shayel pays without swearing right away. Something happens, he pays. Adifa, that's greater. That denotes a greater level of responsibility. Mikvela b'shvua, that the kefil and a double payment that a shemer sachar can theoretically potentially come to if in fact he claimed and swore falsely, and the whole story. So you're right, there are some cases that a shemer sachar can end up paying double, but it's unlikely, and ultimately a shayel is chayav more in the conventional sense than a shemer sachar. Perhaps we'll have a riot to Rav Yosef now that a list the mezuin, an armed robber, is classified as a ganav. We have a brisa, a fellow rents a para and it was stolen. And the renter says, look, I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'm just going to pay for it. I'm not going to make a shvua to protect myself that I wasn't negligent. Here, take the money. It turns out that the ganav was located. Who gets the kefil, which the ganav pays? Allah is mishalim tashlum kefil as seicher. Since the seicher was a nice fellow, he offered the money outright. He sort of acquired rights to get that eventual kefil payout. That's the halach. So instead of the owner getting the double payment, the seicher gets it. Now, Savro, the Bnei HaYeshiva, who presented this right, figured Rabbi Yehuda. This brisa follows Rabbi Yehuda's shita. The Amur says, what level of responsibility does a seicher have? Is he compared to a shemer chinam, who's pater for gneva aveda, or shemer sachar? Which one? Seicher, because noises sachar dami. He's equated to noises sachar. After all, he has some gain. He uses the item, so he's responsible for gneva aveda. Umigdiktani. Now, the fact that the brisa says, "V'amar haridim mishalmin nishbad," I'm going to pay without giving you a hard time. I'm not going to make a shvur to exempt myself, to protect myself. I'm going to pay outright. Mechlal, apparently, di boy pater lenafshi b'shvur. Apparently, he has that option. If he wants, he can make himself pater through a shvur by swearing that, in fact, it was stolen and I'm pater, right? Now, heichidami. What exactly is he claiming? What took place? Kigoindika toin tanas listem azuin. The only way that a shvur can make him pater is if he's going to claim that he was robbed by an armed robber, which is an oinus, for which even a seicher who is equated to Hashem Sachar is pater. Because otherwise, if he's just claiming and swearing that he was just, a regular ganav took it, then he wouldn't be pater. There's no point in making the shvur, right? So apparently he's speaking about a higher level of robbery. Uktani, what does the brisa say? Then you locate this armed robber, he pays, not just once, he pays double. Right? So he's paying double, he's paying it to the seicher. Shmamina, that proves our point. Listen to Mizuyin, Ganavu. Right? Only a Ganav pays double. Right? That's the halacha we're working with all the time. Right? The premise is only a Ganav. The person who's classified as a Ganav pays double. But a Gazlan doesn't. And a list of Mizuyin, well, if he's a Gazlan, why would he pay double? It's a right from here that a list of Mizuyin is considered a Ganav, as we explained before, because he hides from people. And he pays double. List of Mizuyin, Ganav. Amr says the response was like this. Who says the brisa is going like Rabbi Yehuda? The Amar knows seicher k'nois sachar dami, that a seicher is regarded like a shemer sachar, in which case, if it would be a regular ganav, he would have to pay. Apparently we're speaking about an armed robber, right? And that, generates the whole raya. No, Dilma Rabbi Meir really. Maybe the brisa is following Rabbi Meir. The Amar seicher regards a renter k'shemer chinam, like a shemer chinam. And the seicher can simply say, look, it was stolen, a regular ganav. Took it from me and I'm potter. He refused to take that option, right? He refused to go the easy way out. He opted to pay. So because of that, he gets the privilege of getting the kefil from the ganav. So again, we're not speaking about a list of mezuzin, a regular ganav. So it's not relevant to our discussion. Another option can be, Rabbi had a different giras in the machlekes regarding how to classify a seicher. He switched the names around. Seicher Ketzad Meshala. What level of obligation does a seicher have? Rabbi Yehuda Kessler Sachar, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler Chinam. So even if we follow Rabbi Yehuda, a seicher is like a shemer chinam, and even ordinary gneva exempts him. Doesn't have to resort to a armed robber. So as soon as he would say it's been stolen and he swears he would be pater, he opted to pay. So when we locate the regular ganav, he pays kefil, he pays it to the seicher. That's the second answer. Rab Zera Amar, third pshat, Hachab my skin was speaking betoyin tanas listem azuin. Let's go back to a seicher being regarded as a shemer sachar. In which case, if it was regular geneva, he wouldn't be pater. So how could he exempt himself with a shvur? He claimed that it was listem azuin. He claimed he was robbed at gunpoint, which is an oinus. He could, right? That was his time. That was his claim. So at that point, he could have just made a shvur and go home. But he decided to pay for it anyways. And it turns out, it turns out that it wasn't exactly the way he presented it. It wasn't really an armed robber. It was just a regular robber. In which case, he's a regular ganav who pays kefil. And since the seicher had already laid out the money, so he gets the schus to get the kefil, and it goes to him. So once again, we're not speaking that it was actually robbed by a list of mizuin, rather by a regular robber a regular ganav who pays kefil. Okay, Bez Hashem will leave the rest for tomorrow. Let's just recap today's daf. This is a Shas Sugya. What level of Shmira is required from a Shomer Aveda, a person guarding a lost item? Rabbi says Shemachinam. There's no gain involved. Rabbi says Shemesachar. He has some sort of residual gain. That's enough to make him a Shemesachar. Apparently, Rabbi holds it's not such a realistic benefit. How often does an ani come and how much does he save on it? So he's still considered Shemachinam. What's the nafkamina? Is he chai for Gneva Aveda? Rabbi says no. Rabbi says yes. We had a whole string of riots back and forth to try to prove one way or the other. All the best to you, Natzlacha Rabbah.